Well, hello everybody. It's good to see you. I am Michael from Defined Play. This is my friend Grant Casleton,
Hello.
who we've known. How long have we known you for?
2011.
2010,
11.
But what we are doing today is Grant is pretty deeply involved in some very cool hobbies related to painting figurines. Be an issue here.
They're not that great. If you see them from far away, they look great. Don't look at them too close.
I think they actually look incredible. But Grant is going to teach us how to paint miniatures. So hey, cheers. And even though we're cracking High Life, something else Grant is really passionate about is this, Malort. If you don't know what Malort is, this is Chicago's signature spirit. It is often used as a bit of a hazing and a welcome to the city because it's a distinct taste, we shall say. But Grant unironically loves it enough that he put it on his license plate.
Oh, yeah. Love
So
it. Give more.
We're going to get some more Malort.
Good stuff.
Cheers.
And we'll put those out of seed. Oh, yeah. See, that's easy.
I actually don't hate it as much as most people hate it.
It was always fun because when I managed a bar in Wicker Park, we would get a lot of out-of-towners for Cubs games.
Yeah.
And they'd sit down in their Phillies gear or wherever they're coming from out of town. Or even if they're not out of town, I'd set some shot glasses in front of them and just start pouring it out. And half the time they'd be like, "Oh, what's this?" And I'd be like, "Don't worry about it. It's free. You shouldn't even think about it." And 9 times out of 10, it was fine.
Yeah, most people, it's actually not that bad. All right, so you're going to teach me the ways. I know nothing about this. You have spent a lot of time and creative energy on this in very cool ways. Yeah. And you started out. How did you get into this? Because I know there's many worlds here of Magic the Gathering, Warhammer.
It's all a bunch of nerd things that people like, and then you get into it, and then you just kind of get further into it, and then you keep spending money, and then you keep getting into it, and you spend more money.
Great.
Like any hobby, but every time I see price come up for a hobby or a complaint, I always say, I'm like, it's a hobby. Mm-hmm. Like, it's going to cost money. 9 times out of 10, you're not going to make any money back, which is fine because it's a hobby. Mm-hmm. But it also shouldn't stress you out or frustrate you or anything like that. Yeah. Which is why I got into Magic, but also more so into Warhammer and Warhammer 40,000.
And what is money for, if not but to spend on the things that make you happy?
Oh, yeah. I've got a couple Magic cards that are going to be buried with me or burned with me, regardless of what I choose, because they are from friends of mine that lovingly gave me cards or altered cards and things like that. So we're going to paint a 3rd edition Space Marine, which is from the starter set that I got in Christmas in the year of probably 2004, 5, or 6. I can't remember. So we're going to paint these classic Marines. I brought the How to Paint Citadel Miniatures book.
Very cool.
That I always look at and wish I could do better, and then I don't. But I also brought the 3rd edition Space Marine Codex that has the chapter colors, not all of them because there are quite a bit. I keep forgetting this camera goes that way. And Mike is going to pick out whatever color Marine or whatever paint job he prefers, and we're going to do our best to do that because I don't have every single paint under the sun. I brought my makeup bag full of paint here. And we will do our best to paint this up. I forgot to base them after I primed them, so we're going to do the classic Goblin Green 90s base anyways without any sand on it. So look at that. There's yellow, red, blue. We're not going to do the half and halves because
too complicated.
I don't even want to do that.
Above my skill level?
It doesn't even, not even above your skill level. I just don't want to do it.
Okay. So we're deciding between one of these color palettes, and we're going to paint the same palette, correct?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, whatever you pick, we're going to both paint.
Okay.
And yours is going to probably be better than mine, and then I'm going to cry all the way home to Milwaukee.
You know, green Let's go with the green one because green is sort of our defined color.
Cool. We'll
do
dark green.
Yeah,
right, we'll do our best. All right, so it's snot green, which
of course it's called snot green.
Is not a color anymore. All these colors have been.
These are retired colors.
Retired. They've changed them. And it's there's other companies that make paints that they try to get as close as possible to the original or like early Citadel paints.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to think of what snot green would be. Sick green, that's what I was looking for. Red for the bolter gun that he's got. We're gonna need silver. These are a little bit brighter as well than normal. We'll do Ironbreaker, actually. That's a good one. We'll do Ironbreaker, silver. And then what else do we need? Black. We'll do black for the highlights on the shoulder pads. Yellow.
There's huge gatherings of people who get together and do this together. And
yes, quite a bit.
There's a lot of, I imagine, sharing of knowledge and swapping ideas and techniques that happens in those settings. There was one where you were going to be in town, and I was like, oh, that sounds cool. I'll check it out. You remember? And I brought Ira.
Oh, yeah.
Was that
Schaumburg Hotel? Yeah, that was
okay. So I was there.
You were totally there.
I was literally there.
It was so much fun. I forgot you were there. Adepticon is one of it is probably the biggest miniature board game conventions in the United States. Okay. Maybe in the world. I don't know. But they do Warhammer 40K and other Warhammer tournaments there. They do the Golden Demon painting competition, which some of the the miniatures that are painted there are insane and some of the best. And then there's also a bunch of indie games and people that basically start their own games. There's a bunch of awesome, just small games that you wouldn't normally be able to like test out or play at all or do like a test game. So it's a bunch of people that get together that all love tabletop gaming, and they're all there for a good time, and it's just a lot of fun. There's a table that does paint and take, which they've legitimately had 10 to 12 feet of table of just unpainted miniatures that you could go sit down, grab a paintbrush, paint it, and take it home.
Yeah.
And my kids did that when I brought Olivia there. She sat down and painted something, which was really cool. But the gaming community and board game community and miniature gaming community is just big. And I think the best thing about it is that it wouldn't be what it is now if it weren't for the people that got into it when they were younger, but also invest their time and energy and money. A lot of the things they really take to heart, and they bust their ass, and they make sure that they're passionate about it, and they want other people to also enjoy it just as much as they do.
The level of detail on some of these figures is really amazing, and I think that the skill and artistry and precision that comes into some of these things really I had it for a second there. It's hard to quite fully appreciate the level of detail on some of these figures without seeing them in person. But there is so much talent that goes into these things, and I haven't played any of these games.
I haven't played. I just got into this to paint, and I don't have.
Well, I know, and I'm the type of person who, when somebody starts teaching me a new board game, like my eyes roll back into my head. But
this is one of those.
But I could totally get into this purely just for the artistry. Just for the delight of painting the figures and the miniatures.
That's why I got back into it.
And I could do this and never play the game once.
And there's a lot of people that do that. Yeah. Like some of the best painters don't even play. They paint. That's their job. That's their passion, and they don't want to roll any dice. They just want to paint. And honestly, that's great. I think that's the best part about it.
We don't roll the dice because we're cowards.
6. Oh, I got a nat 6. I got a 6. That's good. Cool.
All right, let's get into it.
So, first layer of this is going to be sick green from Game Color. But before you do anything, you need to water down and thin your paints.
Okay.
The biggest, at least when I look back at some of the models that I have, and I should have brought a couple of them, they are just paint blobs. So
Okay, so I've got my.
Get a little water in
Okay.
your paint pot there.
Let me make sure you can see.
Oh yeah, let's move all this.
Move some of these things a little bit
Alright.
here, so you can see our little.
So you just want to thin your paints. That's going to make it the more layers and I mean you can go as thin as you want, but the more layers, the smoother the texture, and it's not going to look like you just globbed on some paint.
Hold on, when you say thin the paint, you just mean like we're spreading it out so that it's like it's less of a glob, or mix it with water.
Oh, you got to mix a little bit with water.
Okay.
So look at this. I'm not doing the whole glob. I'm just doing like a little side of it.
Okay.
And you add a little bit of water, because if you add a little too much water, then it's just going to be too runny, and it's never good. I use a 50-cent tile from Home Depot. I don't use a wet palette because I don't want to wet.
How's that looking?
Perfect.
Okay.
So then, basically, the main thing about painting a miniature is to not continuously go over the same spot, because that is how you're going to get streak marks and other things. So you kind of want to do, here, I'll show you here.
Should I be aiming to paint the entire thing green right now?
Yes, basically everything but the gun, and I'll have to look, but probably just the gun, because the black is going to go over the green relatively easily. So you don't have to worry about that.
So I wondered this about like when, I don't know if you've ever like looked closely at the average toy, but I sometimes wonder like, okay, how did this toy and all the details that come, like, mass produced in a factory, when I just look at this and I'm like, okay, if they're mass producing these toys.
So these are all, I should have brought a sprue. I can't believe I forgot.
Sprue?
So yeah, so these specific models are only 3 loose parts.
Okay.
There's the body, there's the 2 hands in the bolter gun, and then the backpack.
Oh, I was not paying attention, and I totally painted the gun, and you said specifically not to do that. I'm really sorry.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Well, red will go over green, hopefully.
Okay.
So basically, all these are all, if not all, plastic are in like a mold, which then comes on like a square, and then all the little bits and pieces. Back in the day, in the early 90s, early 2000s even, there weren't that many pieces, essentially, to build. You only had a couple. You had very limited customability of how you wanted your army to look. I was listening to a podcast today, and they were talking about the old Tau, which are an alien race in the Warhammer world, and or Warhammer 40k universe, and like I played Tau back in the day, and like the older models just didn't have that customability that you could do nowadays, where I built and painted a 40k orc unit, and when I was done, there were still multiple bits on the sprue that weren't used, because you could have used any of those to make it how you wanted to make it.
Yeah.
Where back in the day, and even now for some of the basic units, you don't get those options. You get, this is how it's made, this is how it's built, and that's how it's going to be. Unless you really want to get into it and then start really kit bashing and like taking other pieces from other people, which is another part of the hobby, which I don't do, because...
What is kit bashing?
So that would be like me taking another part from like this bomb from this witch here, and like putting the bomb on the Space Marine, or taking a skull from like another unit of skeletons and putting those skulls on his backpack, or like just like kind of customizing your own miniatures.
Okay.
But there's a whole community of kit bashers that will actually take bits and pieces and build their own miniatures as well. So they are 100% their own, which is awesome. And there's been a couple of new games coming out that have been really good about promoting that, which from a business standpoint, it might not be the best, because you are not getting paid for the miniatures that you might be making.
Okay.
but they can take and buy the rule book and then play a game with miniatures that they made themselves. But I think it's also really great because then they can.
So let me get this straight. There are different rules. You use I mean, these are not just painting for the sake of painting. These are painting for use in actual, like, tabletop strategy games. Correct.
Yeah.
And are there different rules for if you have painted the things yourself? Like, does it actually, how you paint it impacts the rules of the game?
Not how you paint it. Well, I guess yes and no. So there is, so I haven't, like I said, I haven't played since 3rd or 4th edition, and they're on 10th. Okay. So there's a huge gap of rules and things that I have no idea what happened. I basically blacked out for about 12 years. I continually talk about this hobby, and it continually makes me realize how nerdy it is, but it's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think it's cool.
So let's see. So you straight up are done with
I'm
the
done?
green. Well, no, it's you're done with the green.
So we're as an extension of play,
Mm-hmm.
and oh wow, look at my arm.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, that's all right.
Okay, well that's fine. We'll deal with that later. That's hilarious.
It's acrylic. It'll be fine.
But in the sense that, like, for me, my definition of play, the show is all about defining play and different definitions of play. My definition of play is one in which it has a lot of overlap with creativity and artistry. There's creative expression with painting a miniature.
Yes.
Is there ever a time in which, the desire for, good detail and precision overtakes the play and the fun of it?
At least for me, no, because I know that I'm not doing this for work. I'm not being paid to do it. So it's a hobby. I always talk to people about, like, what do you do for a hobby? And they're like, yeah, I do this for a hobby, and it stresses me out. I'm like, that's not a hobby. Like, it should be enjoyable. It should be relaxing. It should be. You shouldn't do it and then, like, get up and after an hour or two and be mad or upset.
Yeah.
Or not enjoy it, because then it's like, what's the point of doing this if you're going to spend your time, your valuable time, to do a hobby that you're not going to enjoy or you're going to be stressed out about. So usually, like I said, when I compare my models to the miniatures in the books or the people on Instagram that do this basically every single day for multiple hours a week, and then they also work on it
level.
At a very professional level. Yes, I asked a guy how much he would normally cost for, I don't know, this miniature here, which is 28 millimeter. It's not very big. It's heavy, but it's not very big. I was like, how much do you normally charge for a single miniature? He was like $200 to $300. I went, all right, cool.
So
that's a lot, and
this is a level of insane detail. So it makes sense to me why, like, if you were really deep in this, you would pay $200 to $300 for a professionally painted figure. And there's different, there's different, like, aesthetics within. I'm so curious about, like, the Warhammer, like these soldiers. What are these called again?
Space Marines.
Space Marines. So this is a very, like, space and kind of sci-fi aesthetic.
Yes, and, like, a lot of it is over the top. There are no good guys in 40K.
Huh.
The humans are very bad. The aliens are very bad. Everyone just wants to kill each other. So there's, like, it's one of those where, like, there's no good guys. So,
but this is such a different aesthetic than, like you were mentioning, like goblins and Middle Earth, and
very much so. It's and the rules and how the games are played are much different. But it attracts different people that might not like sci-fi, that might like fantasy. It can draw on different crowds and different people. And I've played both. And normally, if you are into the hobby, you are playing both. You will have multiple armies or one of each at the very least.
Is there ever a sense of, like, oh, I worked really hard on this piece and, like, I want to be really careful about, like, maybe I don't want to use it in the game. Like, nothing happens to the figures during the game, correct?
I mean,
come on, focus.
So you move them around on a battlefield, which is like normally a 6x3 table, 6x whatever, or depending on the type of game you're going to play,
Uh-huh.
you're normally careful with moving them because they're delicate. They're little tiny guys. You don't want to break them or drop them.
I'm
or
also
whatever.
a little tiny guy.
Yes,
you know,
we all are.
we're all just
little tiny.
We're all
boys.
just little tiny guys.
So everyone's going to be a little bit careful. It's like if I were playing a game with someone and I liked a model that they had on their table, I wouldn't just be like, "Oh, let me look at that." I'd be like, "Hey, can I take a look at that? That looks really great. I want to ask permission to touch your stuff because it's something that you spent however many hours on, and the last thing you want is someone just to finger it and then just look at it, and then if they dropped it or whatever, and then you're like, well, what the hell was that?" You want to be somewhat careful with it. But like I said, normally there's a battlefield, there's terrain, there's buildings, hills, trees, whatever.
And that's a whole separate discipline, is building out the terrains for these games, right? Because people who are doing hyper realistic trees and rocks and
yes, there's people that build boards for a living. There's people that build terrain for a living. But when we used to play, you'd normally roll a couple of dice, and then you would place a tree, and then your opponent would roll some dice, and then they would place their tree. So you each kind of get a piece of terrain to place on the battlefield yourselves. So you're each setting up the battlefield for however it is.
So you're as you do that, you're building out, you're setting the scene for how the games are going to unfold.
To an extent, yeah. So you both get a little bit of say in where and how the table is going to get set up.
So there's this whole separate ecosystem of people who are within this hobby. There are people who just play the game and don't paint figures.
Correct.
And miniatures. By the way, is that a nomenclature thing that some people say, we do say miniatures, we don't say figures? Or...
Oh, if that's a thing, I don't want to know about it. I'm not going to get that argument about
okay, so if I use the wrong word, I apologize. So, but regardless, there's people within the hobby who each have their own separate lane. There's folks who play the game, and that overlaps with some people play the game and paint miniatures.
Yep.
Some people play the game and design landscapes. And
or they just do that and they don't even mess with
And then there are people who don't play the game, they just paint the miniatures and just
so
paint the
many facets of the game of what can be built and just produced and the biggest thing about Warhammer that I like and what drew me to it when I was younger and then I got back into it a couple of years ago was just the creativity that it allows you to do whatever you want. You're literally buying a little gray or white guy, because I spray painted it white, I primed it, and you can literally paint this however you want. If you're like, I hate the color green, great, then throw all your green paints out. You can paint it basically however you want. It's super customizable, and it allows you to express your artistic ability in a way that, something may not, I can't draw. Legitimately, if I took a piece of paper, if you took my oldest daughter's picture and my picture, you would be like, I don't know which one drew which. I just can't draw. But when it comes
to you have a super talented daughter.
Yeah, let's not give her that.
Maybe she's just she's just a prodigy.
She's pretty good. She's okay. She's fine.
It's fine.
But when it comes to
biased, but it's okay.
Painting miniatures, it's oh, I could do that. And it's obviously a little bit different, but I feel comfortable and I enjoy doing it. Where I'm sure if I practice 10 hours a day drawing, I'd get better. But I'm that sounds absolutely miserable. I don't want to do that. I would rather go sit in my dungeon basement and paint little miniatures when it's dark out or whatever. And it's also just more enjoyable. And I think when you post on Discord or other social media outlets for Warhammer, the community is really good at complimenting on maybe something you did better, or if I'm hey, I just did this, could you help me paint this better? What's a good technique for painting?
Everyone's there to support each other in this. It's not competitive in that sense, right?
To an extent, yeah. There's always going to be a fringe of any hobby that's going to be kind of rude and mean and just kind of standoffish and just you try to engage with, and every single time you engage with it, it's not going to be fun. So you're just kind of like, whatever. You always just brush those people off. But when like I've posted some miniatures on Discord and been like, I'm working on these guys. I think they're fun. Like, what color do you know? I kind of want to do this color, but I don't know if it's gonna look good or like how it's gonna look. And I'll get a couple of people that be like, wow, you should try this color or this color, and like I've done this, and they'll post a picture of theirs just so you can kind of see what they did, and then you can kind of go from that. Because like for this guy, it's an orc war boss basically, and I was like, I don't know what color shield I want to do, and I was like, oh, I like red, maybe the dark red, and
I love the way you did this.
I looked up a couple of the same model painted up by other people online and was basically like, okay, cool, that looks cool. I like that color. I can do a darker color with some highlights, and it ended up turning out really cool.
All right, well, let's keep going then. What are we doing next? We painted our base layer green.
Yeah, let's see how wet your model is. That's the real question.
How long do you usually have to wait for things to dry?
Well, if you do it, so like you can kind of see how shiny yours is.
So like,
if you go
you're saying I did way too much?
Yeah, which is honestly though, like we're gonna keep going.
Okay, all right.
We're gonna ruin that brush tonight, and you're gonna keep that brush and this miniature, and it's gonna be
layer up.
You're gonna be happy. So we'll do the bolter, the bolt gun. We'll do some red
on the gun.
Yep.
Okay. By choosing different colors, does it have different meaning in the game?
Oh, you asked me that earlier, and I didn't get to it. No.
Oh, okay.
That's just because of how it was built.
I see.
But like I said, you could still paint a different way and have some special rules where, like I said, if they came out with this Blood Angels Codex in whenever it was, 96, 97, 98, and we're like, all right, we're gonna make a cool specific army that you can have specific characters that have specific rules. And they've got these specialty units that no one else can get except you because you're playing the Blood Angels. And then a tournament rolls around, and then the top 3 or 4 people playing in that tournament are all playing Blood Angels, and they're realizing that it's too good.
Yeah.
They're going to go back to the drawing board. They're going to nerf some of the statistics and making sure that it's fun, but also not just a blowout. Because the last thing you want is to travel to a tournament, play in a tournament, and then get your butt kicked because the rules were a little bit different. And like that's but also the company that is making all this wants to adjust that and the rules so they can sell more. Like,
well,
so
they want it to be an approachable, inclusive thing. Like, it's no fun if a game is weighted heavily, and like it needs to feel like something where the average person can experience success in the game if it's going to be sustainable.
Yes, and I think a big thing about Warhammer is there's the prices or whatever. It's expensive, like any hobby, but they're all the same. And when I started playing Magic the Gathering again, and I don't even remember, whenever Caw-Blade was cool, which was a while ago, I started playing Magic the Gathering again and went to a couple FNMs where it's like a Friday night Magic where you go and play a little tournament. I played against people that had these decks that were worth hundreds of dollars, and me getting back into it, I didn't have that money. I didn't have those cards, so I just lost. Honestly, but it was fun. I still got to go.
You pay to play?
At that point, it was basically like if you can afford the most expensive deck, you're going to be able to probably do well if you can pilot it well. Where with Warhammer, playing the miniatures and your ability to play the game is a factor, but my squad of 10 Space Marines cost the same amount as my opponents.
Yeah.
So there's the cost to get in is the same for everybody, and I think that's a really cool and fun part of it because you're all playing. It's a point-based system. You're playing a 1,500, 1,000, 500, 2,000 point game. So your armies are the same points. The rules might be a little bit different. But it comes down to me being a better general, or like I know how to maneuver my guys better to beat you.
So much like a battle royale video game like Apex or Fortnite or whatever, it's like you can spend a lot of money on the aesthetics, which is satisfying and enjoyable, much like you're doing with these miniatures. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but at the end of the day, this is purely for just the design and the delight of it. Like
It's like when we played Apex.
it doesn't actually impact the game itself.
Correct. It's like when Apex would come out with some cool packs for different gun skins, and it's
Spend
like
more money on that game than I would like to.
correct.
Yes.
I think a lot of people have, and like it's like this isn't gonna make me shoot better,
No.
but it looks cool.
It certainly never did.
Players know that it's not gonna make them better,
Yeah.
but at the same time, if it makes them
Well,
enjoy,
you gotta look cool.
well, that's
in the game.
And at the end of the day, if they enjoy, if that makes them enjoy the game more,
Yeah.
then great.
Yeah.
All right.
So let's keep painting.
Let's get to the gun. If I'm going to take however much time to paint 10 of these guys, I will normally paint the armor on all 10. And while I finish
you
one,
just like you kind of batch it.
yep, I will let one dry, or I'll set it off, and then I will let it sit there, and then when I want to get back, once I finish like the 10th guy, we can then get to another part on it, and then I kind of just batch it up that way. At least that's how I've done it for the unit. I painted a unit of 30 or 40 night goblins, which are these little tiny goblin guys. And they've got little black robes and spears or bow and arrows or whatever, and like 30 to 40 of them is a lot. I think half my head's been gone this entire time, which is honestly fun because the bottom half of my nose
is getting to you, huh?
well, no, it's the mustache down is
Oh, I see
normally
what you're saying.
what gets people. It's once above the mustache, it's not good.
I only invited you on the show because you have a mustache.
You know what? I've had a mustache for
No, you have. You
basically my entire life.
Long
My
before
wife has
me.
only ever seen me without my mustache once.
What do you think your kids would do when they see you with
They
a
would
mustache?
cry. It wouldn't be good. But now the mustache is cool, so now all of a sudden I'm the guy that's like trying to fit in, and I'm like, no.
You're like,
I've had
no,
this since
no,
like
no.
8th grade. Trust me, and that's all I can do.
I do remember in middle school having to trim my fledgling mustache a little bit. Okay, so on my
And nowadays, if an 8th grader had a mustache, he'd be the coolest kid ever.
Totally. So I botched this. I don't know if you'll be able to see or not, but I botched this already. Where I got some red on the fingers, but oh well.
I'm gonna go grab a hot water. I'll be right back.
Can you grab me one too, please?
Of course.
Thank you.
Also here.
What is that? Beef stick?
Beef sticks, baby.
Oh my goodness!
The great state of Wisconsin.
Whoa, these are spicy.
Jalapeno, baby.
Jalapeno cheddar.
I legitimately walked into the Quick Trip, and there was a merch stand, and I was like, I should get Mike a T-shirt. And I was like, Mike doesn't need more clothes.
Mm-mm.
And I was like, I should get Mike some beef sticks. So I got Mike some beef
Greatly
sticks.
appreciated. Thank
Right.
you.
So you got your gun
Got my
colored.
gun.
Clean your brush off first, though.
Okay.
You always want to clean your brush every time you switch.
It is hard to imagine how you get to the level of detail that you have on some of these, where you have. I mean, there's 40 different colors that you've seen here, and like so much detail.
It takes a while, to say the very least.
So how do we get there? What's next?
All right. Noah asked, are there special brushes for painting miniatures? Yes.
What a great question.
There are. Winsor & Newton, they make some of the best brushes. Artist Opus is also one of the best, probably, brush manufacturers in the world. I bought a couple nice expensive brushes that I try to keep as good as I can and make sure that I wash them all the time because they cost me $15 to $20 a piece. And they also last, which is another thing too, where if you buy, would you rather buy 3 shitty $5 brushes or one nice $15 brush where if you took care of the $15 brush, it's going to last you quite a bit. So you just want to I do a little water on the brush, paint, and then a little bit more water, and like that's it. You don't need any more. And the best thing about painting is you can go back and fix it. In a worst case, if this is like the worst thing I've ever done, you can go get some paint stripper or some isopropyl and throw this thing in a mason jar and then strip the paint and then repaint it. So there's never like a rush unless you need to do it by,
You
deadline.
You got a game tournament.
Yeah. You have a tournament where you don't want to lose points because your army isn't painted all the way. When I'm painting 40 of the same guys, I can paint 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 20, 30. But hopefully by the 50th or 40th, I hopefully have the technique down.
Yeah.
And then, worst case, I can be like, well, I can now go start again and redo it.
And which part are we painting now?
The magazine, the clip of the gun.
Got it.
And then that little part there. I'm having a brain fart again. Whatever those little pieces.
Where the bullets come out.
Where the bullets come out. That little part.
You know.
Okay. So that's where you want to paint silver.
The part that goes pew pew.
Pew, pew, pew.
My brush is kind of splitting, which is making it a little hard. It's kind of going like this. How do you keep it like a clean point?
So it's not being rough with cleaning.
Okay.
With like in the water, like being like super aggressive.
Right. First mistake. Am I like too far gone, or can I kind of recover from
this?
Well,
good thing is. Here.
Oh.
Look at that.
Thanks for licking paintbrushes for me. All right, so I will be.
Paintbrushes don't last forever, and like when a paintbrush kind of goes bad, we like to use them for dry brushing.
Yeah.
Which is what this one is, which is like, think of like a makeup brush, but for miniatures, where you can kind of do highlights relatively easy on a miniature.
So how many more colors do we have? We've done green, black, gunmetal, red, yellow, and brown.
We're just gonna do. Ooh, I don't know.
Is that it? We land in the plane?
Basically, because so normally the old school classic basing is just this green,
I see.
Goblin green with sand.
That's cool with the skull on the knee.
Yeah, so this is a little bit different of a model. This is from this edition, basically.
Okay.
Where it had a little bit different legs. But we could do red eyes.
Let's do some red eyes and call it good.
Yeah, there's plenty of red paint still hanging out there. So.
Okay. You know, all things considered, I'm pleased with my. When there's more colors, it's a little more forgiving of when it's a little splotchy. And I think once I started just painting it how I felt compelled to paint it versus trying to follow the model, I think it turned out a little better.
So we're just going to do a dot of red. Actually, hold on.
Oops, too late.
Nope, use this one.
Okay, we'll do.
That one is good for basically everything, and then when you want to do the tiny little accents.
When did you start licking your brushes?
Oh, all the time. It's just a habit now.
Okay, so I'm going to do this is a very fine point brush, like a needle. I'm going to do just the slightest dot.
Yeah, basically you just do.
That is very cool with the red eyes.
It pops. That's the nice thing about red. Like normally it's not. If it's the main color, you can do something a little bit different. Normally it's black, but if you're not doing red as the main armor color, red usually really pops for the eyes.
Yeah, I'm pleased with that. I'm pretty pleased with that. It's pretty cool. Is this the same red we used on the gun?
Yeah.
I might touch up my gun a little bit.
Oh yeah.
And actually, this is great because I added yellow on the crest on the gun, and then some of it kind of spilled over. And so now being able to go back in with red and I can actually clean up the crest on the gun a little bit and make it seem like I didn't do that as sloppily as I actually did.
If you have a little mess up, little paint gets askew, awry, or whatever, you can go back, let it fully dry, and redo it. Where painting, I'm like, it's bungled. It's over. I can't do it anymore. So, which is kind of the nice thing about painting is that I can go back and fix things, but also if I don't want to fix things, then it's done.
Yeah.
So it lets you be as thorough as possible.
You know, I really enjoy drawing because I can handle it aligns with my brain to like be like, okay, there's really clear, crisp lines. I know exactly what I'm going to get from each stroke.
Mm-hmm.
And painting is, I have so much respect for people who paint anything, not just figurines, not just canvas, whatever. Like people who paint, it is such a different skill set than drawing.
Is it just more variables?
I think it's the blending of the colors. It's the it's the like, you know, you've got to do multiple coats, and sometimes like the pressure with which you put it on has such an impact on, you know, how vivid the color is, and you might see some of your partial strokes, and it's just such a different ball game than like drawing with like a black pen, which is just it's so binary.
Yeah.
It's just
there's no change.
there's ink or there's not, and
you can kind of do a little highlight if you need to, but at the same time, it's not going to change a color.
Yeah. So shout out to people who paint anything and everything. You are awesome. So that's my figure. Who knows if that's in focus or not? Because my monitor died, but that was a ton of fun, and I could see how. I mean, like, I think I was spending a little bit too much time, like, trying to make sure you all could see it and thinking about how it was going and beating myself up for how it was going. But at the same time, like, this was really cathartic and restful. And so based on this, like, you know, we're exploring different definitions of play.
Mm-hmm.
How would you describe this form of play? What is painting miniatures as a form of play?
I could be sitting in the basement for a week straight painting little miniatures, and like, for me, that's fun.
Mm-hmm.
That's, but it's also a lot of fun to go out and play with the miniatures.
To truly play the actual
Correct.
game of Warhammer. Yes.
Or at the very least, and that's the thing though, it's not sometimes just playing the game. It could be sitting down with people that we could like, this is play. We could have like a round table of people just hanging out for multiple hours on an afternoon. Or
everyone's doing their own thing, or
yes, but we're all at the same table.
Yeah,
we're all painting. We have a little painting party or whatever you want to call it, because there's a lot of shops that will do. You know, there's a dude in Chicago I just met over Discord that is doing like, come by Hopewell Brewing and paint a miniature and just hang out. Like, just that in general is fun, at least, because you're able to interact with different people, and you just having a good time. I guess I don't know. It's just. Yeah, it's different than playing soccer. It's different than playing a sport where like you're actively moving, which is some people's play. Where like as rolling dice, hanging out in a card shop for hours on an afternoon, or just hanging out in the basement.
There's an actual game that you can play, but there's just all these other ways where you can just be part of a community and kind of be around and like engage at your own level. And that's a unique thing about a hobby and a community, is to have like multiple options for how people can engage, and still everyone's part of the community, and that's really cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of different people that come together that have a similar interest, that enjoy doing it, have fun doing it, and they can do it all together. Like I could show up at, similar to Magic, where I could show up at a tournament in Chicago, and someone from Japan or from wherever would show up, and we would play a game together, and we would hopefully both have a good time, and we enjoyed it together, but we might not even be able to speak the same language. And it's just a community type of deal. It's really cool.
I was just finishing some green on here, like filling in some places.
I like the black knee.
It actually, like,
black boots.
It ended up turning out. I'm pretty pleased with that. Again, no idea if that's in focus or not, but I'm pretty pleased with that. Pretty cool, dude. Thank you so much for showing this to me, and thank you for teaching me the ways and bringing your passion here, and like I mean, it's so cool to see like the level of detail on some of the things you painted in the past, from the little like grass that you've added and
Basing is one of
texture.
my favorite things to do when it comes to painting models. So
So cool, dude.
there are multiple beginner kits that have multiple paints, brush or two, and then some miniatures that you buy, and then you're basically good to go just to start painting. And there's a lot of different game stores. Warhammer or Games Workshop has their own corporate stores, which are also great to go into because the people that work there are super knowledgeable and can kind of steer you in what you might want to do. You can get some free miniatures from them, and you can paint there too, so you can like start painting right at the shop, which is cool.
That's awesome.
But I think the biggest thing is just like going to your local game store and like looking at the calendar. Like, okay, what's happening on a Tuesday night at this store? Oh, I can show up and there's people playing games. Most likely, you can show up and just kind of like chit chat with some people and ask them questions about how they play or why they like to play. And then eventually you just get to meet people with similar interests, and eventually you start spending some money and you got a hobby on your hands. I was looking for some 3rd edition miniatures to do this with.
Yeah.
And I was trying to find them on the sprue.
Yeah.
So we could legitimately like clip some and build them and then paint them. And they're just kind of hard to come by. And someone needed to clean out some space or their wife was going to get upset. And I offered to pay for shipping, and I was like, I'll pay you whatever you want. Like, these are great miniatures, and they were very kind enough to donate them all. So I'm going to paint a couple of more of them or figure out what to do with them. But I was very appreciative of
Thank you, friend, for donating these and
giving them to me, because
that's really cool.
This is like the first set that I started playing, so there's a lot of sentimental value, and it was nice that someone was willing to give me 10 of them to just kind of paint with and play with, which I really appreciated.
So cool.
So,
well, thank you, Grant. This has been a delight and really fun to do this, and I'm pretty proud of my little guy here. Which
he's yours forever.
Thanks, man. I'm gonna cherish this.
You can hide him around the house so your wife can find him.
She'll love that game. She'll think that's hilarious. No, I think my son is gonna think this thing is awesome.
Well, that's the thing.
It's gonna be a lot of money.
It's gonna be expensive if your son gets into it. But my daughter's been wanting to paint, so I ended up buying that starter set. So when she gets back from vacation next week, I will have it hopefully built and ready to go, so we can at least play some games.
What a cool thing! Cool thing to share together. And
yeah, which is, you roll some dice, you gotta add some numbers, so it's like it's good for learning, and it's creative. I think as a kid, I think that goes a long way to try to be creative, and hopefully helps them be more creative when they get older.
Yeah, well, and like I said earlier, like creativity, from my personal definition of play, it has a lot of overlap, and art is inherently playful to me. So this is absolutely a playful expression, and I'm grateful for it. So
good. Ooh, little red highlights on the back there. I like.
Pew pew.
On the bolts.
Well, cheers, brother.
All right. Cheers. Well, cheers miniatures this time.
Cheers.
All right.
We're not gonna shoot.
No, we're not gonna shoot.
No.
I mean, my cat drinks. Whenever I'm painting at my desk, my cat will get up on my desk and just lick up the paint water, and she's still alive. So I'm gonna let her keep doing it. So.
Can't be good, but yeah,
it's not bad. I feel like it's not bad, and it's not good. It's just like it's water with a little bit of acrylic paint, so it's gonna be just fine.
We'll wrap there. Thanks for watching, friends. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.